Thank you for joining us. You're watching Tigray television. I'm Tigrai, and now proceed to the details. Marking the 33rd Diabetes Day, Adar Comprehensive Specialized Hospital asked for an immediate delivery of insulin to avert the death of many suffering from lack of medication. The hospital said while the world celebrates the day under the theme Access to Diabetes Education, diabetic patients in Tigray remain unable to access treatment and awareness about the disease. According to the hospital, there are more than 25,000 diabetic patients in Tigray, including more than 8,000 children. In its letter to Ethiopia Diabetes Association last month, the hospital said 12 diabetic patients were dying on a weekly basis. The continued delay in implementation of the Pretoria Agreement has also had an impact on health facilities across Tigray. As a result, many continue to lose their lives on a daily basis from preventable and treatable diseases. Our reporter Argal Gavrimkael visited Mekelle General Hospital and spoke to doctors who say the peace agreement is meaningless unless it is able to save their patients. CEO of the hospital called on the Ethiopian government to make sure the deal is implemented.
Mekelle General Hospital, the second largest hospital in Tigray, was used to deliver its services not only to the people of Tigray but also to the people of neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara. However, the 2-year-long war, the consequent all-encompassing siege and termination of basic services has compromised the quality of its services. Sister Hiot Aragawi, a coordinator of the RET case team at Mekelle Hospital, says the peace agreement signed made her happy and hopeful, though it has not yet brought any tangible difference to the people of Tigray, except only for hope.
To nice salam how can hazi
We were hopeful after hearing of the peace agreement, and we thought our people will be getting a relief from its multiple problems as soon as possible. However, it has been almost 13 days now since the peace agreement has been signed. Yet still we haven't seen anything tangible besides hope.
Dr. Philemon Mesfin, the chief executive director of the hospital, also said that the hospital is still losing many of its patients due to lack of medical supplies.
Well, the peace agreement has been, since it's been signed, it's been almost 2 or 3 weeks. And they have promised to open the humanitarian corridor before about a week or 2 weeks. But for me, peace agreement, as a hospital CEO, peace agreement have to be as simple as getting medication for my patients. I cannot analyze the other political scenarios or something. For me, it should be as simple as getting the medications and getting the necessary equipment to treat my patients. So for me, that hasn't happened up until now. And I'm expecting, I don't want to be pessimist about this, because it's only been about a week or 2 weeks, and I do feel like the peace agreement can go a bit further, more than what's happening right now. And I do expect that I do have the rumors that the humanitarian corridor may open within shortly. But for me, up until now, the scenario is almost similar, if not worse, because we are losing so many kids every single day. We are losing so many patients just because of shortage of medications. Our staff have been working for the past 18 or 19 months without salary, and they are still here to treat their patients. But without medications and equipment, it's a bit tough job to do. So for me, the peace agreement should be as simple as getting my medications. But up until now, there hasn't been any change on that, and we are losing so many people every single day that we could have saved if we had the medications.
According to Sister Hiot, the hospital has not yet been able to know the whereabouts of half of its HIV positive patients due to the termination of basic service and other related problems.
Mekelle
Hospital is a pioneer hospital in treating HIV-positive patients in Tigray, and we used to treat patients who used to come from different places, including Afar and Amhara regions. Totally, we had around 4,000 permanent and 1,000 emergency patients here. Currently, we don't even know the whereabouts of half of our patients, as we don't have any access to telecommunication. In addition to this, we still don't know what is going on with our patients who live in the areas that are still controlled by Eritrean forces.
Dr. Philemon forwarded his message to the Ethiopian government and all other concerned bodies to fully cooperate and work for the success and common good of the agreement, with good faith in order to save the people of Tigray dying from lack of food and medical supplies.
My message would have to be to the government of Ethiopia, because they are already the decision makers on this aspect. So, I want to express my concern, and I want to call upon them to act upon what they have signed, to practice what they have signed on the ground. So I know the implementation may not be as easy as signing the papers, but they would have to strive and work a bit harder than they are doing right now to save our people. If the signed paper is hurtfully signed, I believe that both parties want peace, and they have signed this agreement hurtfully, genuinely. So they should act upon what they have signed. And to the other organizations which are concerned on supporting the suffering people of Tigray, I want to call upon them also. Of course, it's not on their hands to bring whatever they want. I know we do have so many contacts with ICRC, WHO. They want to help a lot, but they are not being helped from the central government. They are not being allowed to bring in whatever they have in their stores and warehouses to Tigray. So I want them to push a little further to pressure the central government.
We spoke with an expectant mother who expresses a relief as a result of the peace deal reached, saying she hopes it brings an end to the suffering of many in Tigray. Miron Yamana has more.
Rahel Kiros is a resident of Mala who is expecting, soon to be a mother. She explains her condition and concerns on how the siege has affected her life and her pregnancy.
It is very hard to put in words. We've dealt with tremendous amount of hardships and adversities. I have experienced what any pregnant woman should never experience. We constantly worry that a drone may attack. On top of that, we don't even get proper nutrition due to the blockade. And we see that most of the children born during these times face physical deformations and are generally malnourished, which makes us worry even more. We also worry about after-birth defects, whether the child is going to get vaccinated after birth or not.
Rahel expresses her positive feelings regarding the recent peace agreement that has been signed between the governments of Ethiopia and Tigray, saying that people will get a chance to live peacefully now that the destruction has stopped.
I was very excited to hear about the peace agreement. We may be able to get the basic services restored, and the child to be born may receive all treatments that it will require. I'm thinking of naming my child Salomon if he's a boy, and Salam if she is a girl.
She says that the implementation of peace agreement yet remains to be seen, and that things are still concerning as countless people in Tigray are living in dire situation deprived of humanitarian assistance.
Although the peace deal has been signed for more than a week now, it worries me that we haven't seen any improvements. People are still suffering. It makes you want to question if the agreement will be implemented at all. No medical supplies or food aid has entered the region. There is no transportation. It has been 10 days, yet no development has been witnessed.
Lastly, Rahel urged for the immediate implementation of peace agreement and flow of humanitarian assistance, as many have continued to suffer from the siege imposed on millions.
I strongly believe that food and medical supplies need to start flowing into Tigray primarily and urgently. Countless lives are being lost due to lack of food and medication. Newly born children are dying out every day. In his discussion with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Congressman Brad Sherman called for the continuation of the suspension of AGWA and opposed the lending of international institution loans to Ethiopia unless unrestricted entry of food and medicine into Tigray, as well as an enduring peace, were attained. The congressman stressed that ways have to be paved for international human rights monitors and journalists to be on the ground within the territories of Tigray, and at all sites across Ethiopia where Tigrayan civilians have been detained altogether. Congressman Sherman also said the withdrawal of Eritrean forces is a must for sustainable peace to be achieved, urging for additional measures in the event Eritrea fails to cooperate, to a point where the president of the country be sanctioned if need be. Almost 2 weeks into a peace agreement that promised uninterrupted humanitarian access, millions in Tigray continue to suffer from starvation. To this day, the deal has failed to avert a humanitarian catastrophe in the region that has been taking place for the past 2 years. In an interview with Al Jazeera's Inside Story, analysts say the peace agreement remains fragile as there is no humanitarian aid entering Tigray. Sabdor Kalama reports.
Following the 2 years long war on Tigray, an agreement has been reached between the governments of Tigray and Ethiopia around the beginning of November to permanently cease hostilities. However, implementation of crucial points such as allowing access to humanitarian aid into Tigray still remains uncertain, leaving millions desperate for food and medicine. In an interview with Al Jazeera, Tigrai Gaura Mikhail, an assistant editor in Tighat, a platform that documents the war on Tigray, says the use of starvation as a weapon still remains in place after the government of Tigray signed the peace deal mainly to avert the catastrophe in the region.
And they signed because they wanted aid to get into starving people. People are dying from starvation. From multiple reports, we have been able to understand that there is immense suffering in Tigray. But even though they signed under that enormous pressure, we know that aid hasn't got into Tigray until today. So nothing had changed in terms of actually aid getting to Tigray, even though the very reason that Tigray representatives signed the deal that is otherwise extremely unfavorable to Tigray was to make sure that aid got into Tigray.
Martin Plott, a political analyst in the Horn of Africa, also says the peace agreement remains fragile as long as there is no humanitarian aid entering Tigray, and added that independent journalists should enter the region to report from the ground.
Well, I think until the aid actually begins to flow, and we have no indication yet that it is flowing, then certainly it will remain fragile because as Tekle has just made clear, this is one of the main reasons that the Tigrayans signed. But we have to see some kind of proof. And that's why it's important that not only the aid goes in, but we should have some independent journalists going in as well, who can then report from the ground and say, this is what is happening.
Tigrai Gaura Mikhail also says that humanitarian workers have reported to have been banned from entering Tigray, while some Ethiopian government officials claim aid has started to flow into the region.
A senior government official was yesterday caught lying. He said that aid was flowing to Tigray, but immediately humanitarian workers in Ethiopia said that that was actually categorically a lie because they have been banned and they still continue to be banned from delivering aid. So the claim that aid is getting to Tigray is a complete categorical lie, and this is something that humanitarian workers have been repeatedly saying.
According to the UN, there are currently over 5.2 million people in dire need of humanitarian assistance, including food and medication.
That wraps up today's news. Thank you for your time. See you next time.